Because I have the same exact questions. And it goes something emails.
Business can get 5K. So if you have a sole proprietorship, analysis.
Yeah, but you should have changed that.
Fill out an application.
You should back up. They will be the only people on the we questioned it when I got one vote, because we thought they were for the same thing. For one's for the application, one's for the extra.
When are we voting?
So, I mean, tomorrow, I guess, reach out to them if we have to go.
No.
Well, I mean, I'll amend them. Yeah, but you see the emails, that's why. Because I questioned, both the girls, Linda and
There is an issue. There you go. Somebody said there's your video. Let me just check. Interesting. What's that? I do not.
We'll just keep the time. Just remember, can you keep the time to yourself, bro? No, that's fine.
Tell me where they're at.
These,
Yeah, where they at.
they might be, it's not where my computers are, the other desk, in the first top drawer.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the scheduled meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, with scheduled designated time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record, and request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the mic. The recording device is to be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office. Minutes, it shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Ms. Grace? Here. Mr. Mignon? Mrs. Stubbs?
She is ill tonight.
Mrs. Winters? Here. Mrs. Strato?
She's excused.
Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlemere?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Mr. Lechner?
Here.
Chief Harkins? Mr. Chadwell?
Here.
Black History Month, whereas the Township of Gloucester takes pride in recognizing February 2021 as Black History Month, celebrating the many notable contributions that people of African descent have made to our country. And whereas Negro History Week was first established in 1926 by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, under the leadership known as the Father of Black History. And whereas in 1976, expanded the celebration of Black History Week to a month-long celebration of Black history. And whereas 10 years later, Congress passed Public Law 99-244, designating February 1986 as the 60th annual public and private salute to Black history, observed as National Black African American History Month. And whereas we celebrate the diversity of Black people, whether they self-identify as African American or Black. And whereas we recognize this year's theme of the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. And whereas we reserve the unbreakable bonds with the Black family despite challenges placed on those ties by persistent and abundant racial disparities, including the criminal justice system, healthcare, education, economic opportunity, and many other areas affecting the Black community. And whereas we acknowledge the systematic racism which has disrupted societal ideals of a traditional family for many. And whereas we now hereby recognize and celebrate all identities of the Black family structure, whether it's a traditional unit of people related by blood or ancestry, or a purposefully created group of individuals formed from shared compassion, love, and support. And whereas each Black family has a unique and interesting story, which although we may not be able to fully understand, we can listen and share with care, treating each other with respect and empathy. And whereas today we celebrate and affirm the contributions of the Black family to our community throughout our state and the nation. Now therefore be it resolved that David R. Mayor, Mayor of the Township of Gloucester, and Orlando Mercado, President of the Council, Township of Gloucester, do hereby proclaim February 1st, 2021 through February 28th, 2021 as Black History Month, and call upon the people of the Township of Gloucester to observe this month with appropriate programs, activities, and reflections, and to continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, equitable, and prosperous for all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Each year, this body, along with the mayor, recognizes individuals that have made outstanding contributions to our community to celebrate Black History Month. In fact, that was the last celebration that we had prior to the pandemic last year. It's unfortunate we're not having that this year, but I look forward to having that in the future as we go forward. Our public portion shall be for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. They can speak up to 2 times. The maximum is 15 minutes for the public portion. Our clock is on the fritz today, so I've asked Councilman Neal, who will be keeping the time, and will tell me when the 3 minutes has elapsed. I entertain, anyone who would like to speak during the public portion, please raise your hand. Mr. Heinball.
Good evening, Council.
Even
Good evening.
Pete Heinball, Morningstar Clerk. I have a couple agenda-related questions, and I did send a couple of them in advance to Mr. Cardis. The first one's from the bill list. On the bill list, there's a payment of $11,500 to a firm called Local Intel for IT services. I was curious what that.
Yeah, Local Intel is the Economic Development Committee engaged. What they do is they provide a database, and it's on our website. You can look at it on the website. It's an economic development tool for any potential businesses that are in the area, that are throughout the United States, that are even in other countries. And it allows an interested party that might want to take, to gauge certain things, as review the business climate, discover industry trends, research their customers, analyze their competition, local opportunities. It goes on and on and on. But it's a tool, and this is an annual fee that we pay for that service.
A one-time annual fee.
One-time annual.
Okay. All right, thank you. Also on the bill list, something I did not see yet this year or on this bill list, the payment out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for that land purchase. Has that taken place yet? We haven't purchased that yet, okay. One more question for agenda, resolution 61. That's the transfers, the financial transfers of budget items. Does that the final financial transactions for 2020?
I would say no.
So the
Because this is the transfer of the reserves, and the CFO has an opportunity to transfer those reserves up until the end of March. So it is conceivable she can come back and put another resolution on doing further transfers for the reserves.
Okay. But things like tax collections and those types of items are those closed for the fiscal
That's all
2020?
closed, the books are closed. This is for bills that come in after the close of the year, like for example, all your utility bills.
That apply to 2020.
Correct.
Yeah.
The services were provided in 2020, the bills are coming in 2021.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heimel.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. We have the ordinance of the first reading. There will not be a public hearing for that. That will be at the second reading. Ordinance 0-21-03. It's calendar year 2021 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish the cap bank. This provides a temporary budget until we adopt the budget for the calendar year 2021. Mr. Karsh, you want to add anything to that?
This is not the temporary budget. What this is,
Oh,
total ordinance,
Call
and it's moving us from the 1% that the state established to
it. My apologies.
3.5% that is permissible under the COLA statute. And you're correct, it allows us to bank cap without the COLA ordinance. You cannot bank cap, and this is only affecting the expenditure side of the budget.
Thank you. Entertain a motion
I'll make that motion.
on the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignani?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-21-02. This is the second reading. There will be a public hearing. It's ordinance amending Chapter 74 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Stormwater Management of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. At the last meeting, representative from CES provided some input on it. Essentially, this is housekeeping and updating the ordinance that we have on file. We'll now open up the public hearing. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Entertain a motion
So moved.
Second.
on the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignani?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have the resolutions of consent agenda. Any council member that would like to remove any of the items on the agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mignon. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignani?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. The next is, okay.
21-061, resolution to make budget transfers between appropriation reserves and the calendar year 2020 current fund budget.
I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We'll now have, we did not receive any GTE Gov access emails. Now we'll open up the second public portion. This is for any item that the public that chooses to address Township Council. Each speaker is entitled to speak at least 2 times. The time limit is 30 minutes. Mr. Young, if you can keep the time for us, I'd appreciate it. Does anyone like to speak during the public portion? Mr. Sweet. Ma'am, I have you react. Okay, thank you.
I've never been to a meeting before, so you can go first. I don't.
Go ahead.
Go on.
I apologize. Sometimes I'm
Not a
trying to
problem.
figure out what is an opportunity for someone to speak, or even ask questions, because I'm new, so.
Okay.
It's
I've
good.
been to one meeting before. This is my second meeting ever,
Okay.
being in New Jersey my entire life.
All right. Can you have your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Shaughnessy Smithson. I live in Millbridge Gardens Apartments. It's apartment 341. If you ask the state of New Jersey, it's recorded as 1341 Blackwood-Clementon Road, apartment 341, Clementon, New Jersey 08021. But there are several places of business, especially my doctor's offices, that return that mail to them that say that that apartment building is abandoned. It's also written as 341, my apartment unit, followed by Millbridge Road for the entire apartment complex, even though I live on Millbrook. I was told to write 341, my apartment number, followed by Millbridge Road for the entire apartment complex. Clementon, New Jersey 08021. But that mail also gets returned to people that try to send me cards, like birthday cards or such from out of state. So I really don't know what my address is.
Good evening anyway.
Hello. I've never met everyone here, so when you do a roll call, I get dizzy because I don't know who's saying that if you raise your hand, I can put a name with a face, and that would help me get to know
All right, I'll start.
who you are.
I'm
Well, no, I
Orlando.
mean, just, you're going to announce yourself several times, but just letting you know if anybody else comes in new, I don't know who you are, and if everybody moves their head a little bit, I don't know who's acknowledging the name to the masked face.
Okay, I'll start. I'm Orlando Mercado.
With Black History Month, I had a great local librarian growing up in Whitehall School. Her name was Miss Only, and she would read to us. So, shout out for Miss Only. I didn't know when to bring this up. There was a question about, I called the township to ask about bootleg movies. I thought the township might be interested in working together with the public library system, maybe on some kind of honor system, if they could have something available to the public to go in and pay for the movies that they've seen or owned or had anything to do with any of them. People could go in and try to make good on that. In a time that everybody's doing everything online, that they're not really going out or spending money, maybe they could try to make good on some of the things that they've done. I didn't know if that
What
was something.
exactly is that?
Well, a bootleg movie is something that is like a movie that somebody recorded, and you're not supposed to. You're supposed to buy them officially. And after reading the instructions, there's a lot to it. So
So what do? I'm trying to.
I don't know how to make good on the ones that I have, and I don't feel that throwing them away is sufficient. I don't feel cleansed if I throw them away, so I keep them until I know how to make good on them. But apparently, it's not enough for Hollywood to come after me or the FBI, because I called the FBI.
Okay.
So, and it's not enough for them to tell me what to do with them. So I'm trying to figure out how to pay for them, and I didn't know if the township would have any interest in starting something like that, because I'm technologically ignorant,
Me personally?
and will remain that way until I
I'd
figure out how to
destroy
get my
them
address.
Shaughnessy, you say you have bootleg videos.
She may have. She may.
May.
Oh, I do. I have some in my possession. I
Well,
do.
you say you may. Chief Rosier, you may. So I would imagine, I don't think that as a public entity, we should be involved in that. But perhaps there are organizations that will accept that.
No, just as
Charitable
I didn't know if the township was interested in starting someplace where somebody could go, like the public library, maybe working together with one of the local merchants, like a Walmart or Target, where you could go in and say, oh, I watched this, and sign up and just pay the fine there. You can get a receipt for it that you paid for. People will do the right thing if given the opportunity. There's no place for anybody to do it.
I'll think about it.
Just as Napster was. Exactly. And I even tried to call for that to see if there was something, because I believe my son had some on his computer, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do? There's no place to go to make good on it.
It's interesting.
And being in New Jersey, when money is there to pay it, I'll pay it when I have it. But if when I have it, I can't get to make good on it, it becomes difficult.
It's interesting. Analogous to turning in guns, let's say. You know,
Right, yeah, I mean, something as simple as that, I mean, they'll pay for it, you know, whatever the movie was, and that way, the people that made the movie can get the money for it. I couldn't think of any way to do it.
Well, that's interesting.
I just wanted to present that if I could.
Thank you.
And the 211 system doesn't have acknowledged Gloucester Township. It sent me to Huntington.
Cool.
Maybe I'll take that. Thank you for
All
that
right.
idea. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sweet?
Good evening, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel. I guess I'm following up again on the 493,000 and the 300,000 small business.
Well, we all have copies in front of us. It was placed on the website. The projects listed the budget for the $493,000. So it's under it's called CV3 budget, correct, Mr. Cardis?
That's correct.
And it lists the projects that are under the C3 budget, the 493,000, how it will be utilized. You have it in your hand there,
Yes.
correct? And you're aware that there is a hearing on February 16th.
Originally scheduled though for February 4th, which was moved because that's what the patch was originally reporting.
I wasn't aware of that. You were aware of that, Mr. Carvis?
I wasn't on it.
Okay. So I have February 16th here.
Okay.
So what questions do you have, sir? You have that document?
Yeah, I have the document. Well, my first question is, there's a CV1 budget and a CV3 budget. Is there a CV2 budget?
Mr. Carvis?
No, the CV2 is for municipalities that do not deal directly with HUD for their CDBG.
Okay.
They go through the DCA. So they got their money under that category, CV1 or CV2. So you won't see anything for us for CV2 because our CV2 is really CV3 where we deal directly with HUD.
Okay. The breakdown of the 493, when we started asking questions on it, when it was reported in the paper, it said 493,000 going to rental assistance for people that were having trouble making their rents. This breakdown now goes small business 303, small business technical assistant 45,000, PPE 26,000, Unforgotten Haven Food Resources 20,000, CARES Act implementation costs 98,000. So my question is twofold. There's nothing on here for rental assistance for residents of Gloucester Township?
Not to my knowledge, no. These are small business grants up to $5,000. The business must have 10 or less employees to qualify
And located in Gloucester Township.
and located in Gloucester Township.
And
And as I understand, talking to the people that actually prepare these applications, they're quite involved in criteria that would match up with HUD to get approval. They seek to try to remedy that situation. Once that's done, there's a final application. So each application could take anywhere from 8 to 10 hours to complete.
okay, so if somebody wanted to complete that application, can they get a head start on it now?
No, we're not up and posted yet. We're gonna roll this thing out right after the public hearing for the CV3. I would say probably a week after that. At that point in time, people can begin to make the application. They'll go to our website to make the application.
So end of February.
Yeah,
You said a week after the meeting.
yeah, I would
6
say that's the same.
Okay, and how long? First come, first serve for the.
Presume so.
Okay, and you said less than 10 employees located in Gloucester Township.
That's a HUD thing. That's a HUD.
I'm assuming in business during the pandemic, like somebody who just opened up shop yesterday isn't going to be eligible?
I don't know that.
Can we get clarification?
Criteria? Yeah, can we get that criteria?
Can we get the criteria for that? What is CARES Act implementation costs?
That's
That's
technical
an
assistance.
application process.
That's the admin.
So
Spending, because they're gonna contact,
98,000?
they're gonna be contacting Triad, and Triad's going to navigate this process. What they've indicated to Mr. Cardis and the administration is that it could take up, an application could take up 10 hours. They're gonna shepherd them through the entire process. So, any individual that contacts them, they'll be working with Triad, and that's part of that implementation cost.
Okay, so it won't cost a business any money
No,
to apply. It's just being paid to
Right out of here. Now, they could go as high as 20% on the admin. They're with the CV1 and the CV3 combined, they're at 16.9% of the total money.
Okay, and what is small business technical assistance?
That's part of that process.
Is that, well, so, but that's 45,000, and then you have the CARES Implementation Act of 98,000.
So where's small?
Small business
third
assistance
line, Tom.
is 303. The line right below it is 45,000 small business technical assistant, and then you have the CARES Act implementation cost, the last line of 98,000.
Okay, that is for, and actually I show it as 40,000 in my budget. That is for webinars and coaching for small businesses.
So,
That is to help them.
so if a small business wants to do it on their own and not,
No, I think it supplements what the process of them applying for the money. I mean, you're talking about 5,000, if they get the 5,000, in the right direction and make them successful.
So it's gonna be a maximum of 60 businesses, if everyone gets $5,000. You said up to 5,000.
Now, I think it's up to 5,000 would be 85 applications. But a lot of those will get, might not qualify for one reason or another. So they're gonna probably process about 120 to maybe 130 applications.
But it would be most likely first come, first serve.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then there's when the patch issued saying that they were $493,000 for rental assistance, that's not on the table. There's no rental assistance for any Gloucester Township residents.
I'm not aware of it.
This is the
Yeah, I'm not aware.
So
These are small business grants.
So the patch was mistaken when they issued that 6 months ago?
I have no idea. I don't recall the patch article. Again, I don't read the patch. So.
No offense to them.
None taken, all right. I'm just, so, I mean, if I forward the patch article to you, can we follow up why the patches, or, because people were looking at that and asking about that 493 as well for rental assistance, so.
And as you recall, the county had a pot of money that they were asking municipalities to push, that was still available. And that's something that we discussed in our meeting over time. But yes, I do recall that the patch had reported that it was for rental assistance. But then,
This is not.
clearly this is not. This
Yeah,
is
no, I see that, but I'm just saying, is there rental assistance available? Was it ever on the table? B, rental assistance, and is there something else that residents can do?
So let's take a look at what Triad submitted, and then we'll circle back. I'll get a hold of it.
All right, and then I also have one last question, if I have time. If not, I'll come back my second time.
Do we have time?
We're at 13 minutes total.
Oh.
You want me to come back?
Come back. Does anyone else like to speak? Mr. Harbaugh?
Pete Heinbaum, Morningstar Court. My questions are also regarding this HUD grant.
Okay.
So both CV3 and CV1, Gloucester Township has received these funds at this point?
No.
Neither.
How it's gonna work, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carter, it is a reimbursement.
You are absolutely correct.
So we have to front the money and then get reimbursed.
Okay. And I heard the Economic Development Corporation and mentioned, is that who prepared this budget? Or the members of the
Triad
administration?
Associates. The administration with Triad Associates.
With the administration, who in the administration worked with Triad?
The mayor's office, Mr. Carter.
Okay. One of the line items is Housing Authority sanitizing, $25,000. The Housing Authority isn't really a building, it's just a board. Does that mean the senior complex? Is that that's what we're talking about? Okay.
That's your campus one.
So it's the campus, all right. And the other one is the personal protective equipment. Is that for the township? Who's receiving that person?
That's for the small businesses.
Well, that's another small business pool of money. Okay. Another one. Everything on here relates directly to in the borders of Gloucester Township, except line item number 1, the Camden County Women's Center, which is located in Camden City.
No,
No, we have one in the township.
yes.
Oh, okay. In that resource center there of where's it located?
It's in the Gloucester Township. In my, what I do during the daytime, we have a lot of students that are placed in our district, that their parents, their mothers have been placed in that particular shelter, and the children, they attend our schools. They're permitted to stay there for a 45-day period. there are people that are within our township and there are people that are out of our township that are in that particular shelter.
Okay.
But once they're in that shelter, there are children that are attending our school district.
That's a very good cause.
So I think it's very important that we
Yeah, it is. Good cause.
provide that to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Cruz?
Evening, Council. Paul Krug,
Good evening,
Blackwood
Paul.
Estates. Hope everyone's doing well. Staying focused on what I've spoken about at the last 2 to 3 meetings. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the last meeting, so you'll have to reach back to the January 4th meeting. This is in regards to the municipal budget. And we had a conversation where Ms. Stubbs had engaged and suggested that my comparison between ourselves and Washington Township may have not met the variables that she thought were of the utmost importance, along with a few others. And she suggested that Cherry Hill was a better comparison. Unfortunately, work today kept me late. I didn't get to print out the Tableau data visualization for you guys, but I will send it afterwards. Needless to say, Cherry Hill's equalized tax base is 2 times ours as of 2018. Ours is $4.5 billion. Cherry Hill's was $9 billion. Regardless of that, 1998, Cherry Hill's municipal budget was $12.5 million. 2018, it was $45.2 million, which is an increase of 3.6 times. Gloucester Township, meanwhile, of course, we have to keep in mind that the tax base is half. In 1998, it was $10.8 million. In 2018, it was $48.7 million, which is a 4.5 times increase. Ms. Grace, you talked about working with your colleagues here and the administration on trying to reduce this curve, trying for maybe the next 2 decades to cut some of the, what is obviously extraordinary spending. I was wondering if you had an opportunity to think on how you were to do that or discuss it with your colleagues.
Unfortunately, I was out last week along with you, sick. No, I have not discussed that with my colleagues, but again, it's still a conversation at any township that, we want to decrease taxes. That's important for every township. So it is still a conversation that we all will have. But no, I did not have that conversation this last week.
Okay. I will, I guess, say that the budget is coming up once again quickly. The more time we can spend exploring the intricacies, because we know when that budget hits our hands, 75, 80, 90 pages long. And that's a whole heck of a lot to go through in 2 to 3 weeks like we did last year. And we know last year we were able to only go from a 10.5% increase to a 9.75. So I'm hoping we can do much better this year. 4.5 times in 2 decades, beating Cherry Hill, I think says it all. So I hope that the subcommittee is considered once again, President Mercado, because I think it's absolutely necessary. The data tells the truth. Thank you all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that has not spoken yet? Mr. Sweet, you'll be our last speaker.
Sam Street from Ariel again. A couple months back, a resident was here talking about the ambulance facility in Ariel that's being used, and I understand we were told that, because of the desperate times that we were in at the time, we can let it go for free, and they're not paying anything. I know he had asked if we had went back and looked at that, and I asked a follow-up, and I was told that there's an agreement. When I asked for the agreement, it's apparently a verbal agreement. There's nothing in writing, but yet it's good for 2 more years. I don't understand how that works. A verbal agreement, and the residents are paying for the utilities, for everything else. What happens if there's damage done to that building? What happens if somebody slips and falls on that building? Is the township liable? And I don't think a verbal agreement covers all of that. So I'm a little concerned about, well, why don't we have some sort of written agreement with them? And why aren't we charging them some minimal fee? Because now it's, 2 years later? So we're not in the same boat, and just following up with that.
So we do have a verbal agreement. Mr. Carl, Mayor, the verbal agreement, that's something that's acceptable for a municipality.
Just as we tried to explain the last time, the township was in a difficult situation when the original EMS folded. They were not responding, the ambulances were not properly licensed, et cetera. So we had to hunt very quickly in order to provide township service for EMS. Which is not something usually governments provide, we usually contract out for that, or have local volunteer organizations that do those things. So we came across AMR, they responded very quickly, they were very competent, very capable. They made certain representations that we could meet the standards that the township was requiring. We wanted them to house within the township, correct me if I'm wrong in my comments. So the contract had 2 years left, is that what it has? I believe it does. So we entered into a term contract with the AMR to provide services to Gloucester Township. We required a certain number of ambulances to be present in Gloucester Township. They could not find a location. The building that you're talking about was used by a prior EMS. In fact, it was deeded to that EMS, and we went to court to get it back to enforce the restriction. And we got a court order, but also with the assistance and an agreement from that EMS organization to deed it back to the town. So the building was available for them to house equipment. I could run their main business out of there. They're housing equipment so that it runs out of this township. And it was agreement that we would provide that service. They would just move their ambulances and the personnel would be sitting there. The reality, to my knowledge, and maybe Tom or the chief can correct me, they don't usually keep their vehicles there anyway. They usually park in different areas of the township. They also now service other surrounding communities. So, but they're housing their vehicles there. They're parking them in different locations, sometimes in fire halls, wherever they feel that that's becoming a peak area. But they're available for under a verbal agreement with the town.
And this is all verbalized.
It's all a verbal agreement. That's part of the reason to get them in quick.
I understand that, but now at some point,
So I would imagine when this contract terminates,
so do we have since it was a verbal agreement, do we have an official date of when this contract
there'll
ends?
be a contract.
The contract has a specific date. Look, Councilman, if you want to do something in writing that images, mirror images this verbal agreement, there's nothing that bars us from doing that. We can put this in writing.
To memorialize the agreement, but now when their contract terminates, that means the contract providing services to this county. That has a term. One of the things that I've been thinking about is when that contract terminates and they're going to renew it, if they're going to continue to use that building, we'll provide agreement of obligation, services, and what have you. And I know they have all their liability in place. That was one of the things we said, you have to have all your liability in place that covers wherever your vehicles are, which is included in that building.
So Dave, that's my concern. Are we properly insured? Or if anything happens on that property, let's say one of their employees, are we insured adequately?
We're added insured to their liability policies. I'm trying to think back a few years when we reviewed that. We're added insured on their policies, so that covers whatever might happen to some employee of theirs while they're there. And they responded back at, which they seem to be taking care of the building. I've not seen any complaints come to us. So it's being maintained. And like I say, their vehicles, as I understand, are circulating throughout the town. Sometimes spend a lot of time at a fire hall or maybe right at Pine Hill, which is a neighboring community, depending on the dynamics of the area, I'm sure they're explaining why they do that.
And we're picking up the cost of the utilities and the water and everything, gas, electricity there?
Yes.
Can we get is there an amount that we can get associated with that, what the township's picking up?
Get it? I don't have it.
No, I understand you don't, I wouldn't expect you to have that number. That'd be like asking who the Game 4 pitcher of the '68 World Series was.
Which game?
Game 4, '68?
I'll give,
No. I don't know it either, but, if you could get me that information, that'd be great. And then also, do we know when the contract ends?
I'm not sure of the date.
I believe it's 2022.
All right, so when that contract goes, then we'll probably
December
go out for
31st.
bid again.
It was an RFP, so. So it's over December 31st, 2020.
So when that date happens, the township will probably go out for bid for that kind of service.
It will be out for bid before that.
And the dynamics of the use of that building will change. Because it was a response to an emergency, get them to house their vehicle here.
I understand it was a response to an emergency, but now it's 2 years later, and I would think that would be in writing, hey, come in, you don't have to pay anything on that. I just think for a township to do a verbal agreement to that extent, that's costing the township money, because we're paying the utilities, being the residents, and the electricity and the gas and the water. I would think that would require a contract in writing, not just a verbal agreement. Because, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. That's it, that's all I have.
okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Now, we'll close the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Brennan,
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Curtis,
I have nothing to,
Mr. Lechner,
Nothing to report, thank
Mr. Parsons,
nothing to report.
Mr. Chadwell,
To report.
Mr. Hutchison,
you. Nice to see some new faces out here. Thank you very much for coming and staying. Have a good night.
Ms. Grace,
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Mr. Minio,
Thank you all for coming, everyone. Please be safe going home.
Mrs. Winters,
I want to thank everyone for coming out. Hope everyone was safe through the last storm, and hopefully over the next couple of days, everything will be okay. Who knows what we're going to get. So I normally do something about COVID, but it is February, so it is Heart Month, and it is Go Red for Women Month, hence the red, which is not a color I normally wear. It's just a couple of facts. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for women. It kills more women than all forms of cancer combined. And one woman dies every 80 seconds from heart disease. Just something to keep in mind. Take care of your family. Tell them to listen to their bodies and be safe.
Mr. Mercado.
I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I want to thank our Public Works Department and also our Police Department for keeping us safe through the storms that we've had. Looks like we may have an event this Thursday coming up again. So please be careful when you're out there driving. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. All those, is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Have a great evening, everyone.
First or last?
They did good.
Hurt?
If my arm's sore today.
I'm not too bad. A little dicey on the right, left side of the lane.
Got the second shot this morning,
But
so
I-
it's hard to do.
I usually try to